Before you watch another second of this video, I want you to ask yourself one painful question. How much of your life have you actually lived, and how much of it has been controlled by fear? Think about it. The opportunities you never took because you doubted yourself. The words you wanted to say but swallowed instead. The dreams you quietly buried because you were afraid of failing. The relationships you walked away from before they had a chance to grow. The version of yourself you could have become if only you had trusted yourself a little more. Most people believe their greatest enemy is somewhere outside of them. A difficult childhood, toxic people, bad luck, a cruel world. But Buddhism reveals something far more unsettling. Sometimes, the voice causing the deepest suffering is the one inside your own head. The voice that says, "You're not ready. You're not enough. You'll only fail again. You should play it safe." And because it sounds like you trust it, you obey it. You build your entire life around it. But what if that voice has been wrong? What if fear has been speaking in the language of wisdom? What if the life you've been longing for has been waiting on the other side of the thoughts you never questioned? Tonight, we're not just talking about overthinking. We're uncovering one of the greatest illusions of the human mind. Because the moment you stop believing every thought you think is the moment you stop surviving your life and finally begin to live it. Welcome to the inner Buddha code. Let's begin the journey back to yourself. Doubt wears the mask of wisdom and steals your courage. Doubt rarely arrives looking dangerous. If fear walked through the front door and announced itself honestly, most people would recognize it immediately. If a voice inside your head said, "I want to stop you from living your life," you would resist it. If it said, "I want to keep you small, afraid, and stuck exactly where you are," you would never listen to it. But doubt is far more clever than that. It does not shout, it whispers. It speaks softly in a voice that sounds exactly like your own. It dresses itself like wisdom. It pretends to care about your safety. It says things like, "Maybe you should wait a little longer. You are not ready yet. What if this goes wrong? What if people laugh at you? Perhaps this isn't the right time. You should think about it a little more. Maybe someone else can do it better." At first, these thoughts sound responsible. They sound mature. They sound intelligent. And that is why they are so dangerous. Because if you listen closely, you may discover that many of these thoughts are not protecting your future. They are protecting your fear. Fear does not always stop you by creating panic. Sometimes it stops you by making endless excuses. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom. It convinces you that overthinking is preparation. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than risking disappointment. And before you realize it, years begin to pass. The dream you wanted to pursue remains untouched. The conversation you needed to have never happens. The love you wanted to express stays trapped inside your heart. The business you wanted to start remains only an idea. The person you wanted to become slowly fades into the background of your own life. Not because you lacked ability, not because you lacked intelligence, but because doubt convinced you that someday would be a better time than today. How many beautiful songs have never been sung because someone doubted their voice? How many books have never been written because someone thought they were not talented enough? How many opportunities have been lost because fear disguised itself as common sense? How many people spend their whole lives waiting until they finally feel ready? The painful truth is this: most people never feel completely ready. There is no perfect moment. There is no magical day when fear disappears and certainty arrives. Life does not work that way. The Buddha taught that attachment creates suffering, and one of the deepest attachments we carry is the attachment to certainty. We want guarantees before we move. We want proof before we trust. We want certainty before we begin. We tell ourselves, "I'll start when I have more confidence. I'll speak up when I stop being afraid." I'll follow my dream when I know it will succeed. I'll love again when I know I won't get hurt. But life offers very few guarantees. No one knows exactly what tomorrow holds. No one can predict every outcome. No one can avoid every mistake. The need to control everything often becomes the very thing that controls us. And while we wait for certainty, life quietly continues moving forward without us. Growth has never required certainty. Growth requires willingness. A seed does not know what storms it will face before it breaks through the soil. A bird does not know exactly where the wind will take it before it spreads its wings. A child learning to walk falls many times before finding balance, and yet they continue, because life itself is built through imperfect beginnings. Courage is not the absence of fear. Many people misunderstand courage. They imagine courageous people never feel doubt. They think brave people wake up every morning filled with confidence. But courage often looks very different. Courage is sending the application while your hands are shaking. Courage is speaking your truth even when your voice trembles. Courage is choosing love after heartbreak. Courage is trying again after failure. Courage is taking one small step forward while fear walks beside you. It is not fearlessness. It is choosing not to let fear make your decisions. The people you admire are not people who never doubted themselves. They are people who learned to move even when doubt was present, because they understood something powerful. You do not have to believe every thought your mind creates. The voice in your head is not always telling the truth. Sometimes it is simply trying to protect you from pain it experienced in the past. Sometimes it mistakes comfort for safety. Sometimes it chooses familiarity over possibility. But a safe life is not always a meaningful life. If you always choose comfort, you may avoid certain disappointments. But you may also miss the experiences that could have transformed you. You may miss the friendships waiting to enter your life, the purpose waiting to awaken inside you, the strength you never knew you possessed, the joy hidden behind the risk of trying, the version of yourself you were meant to become. So the next time doubt visits your mind, do not immediately obey it. Pause for a moment. Take a slow breath. Place your hand over your heart if you need to, and ask yourself this simple question: is this wisdom guiding me or fear controlling me? Ask it honestly, because wisdom brings clarity. Wisdom creates peace. Wisdom may tell you to slow down, but it never tells you that you are incapable. Wisdom protects your well-being without destroying your confidence. Fear, however, shrinks your world. Fear convinces you to betray your own potential. Fear keeps you standing at the edge of your life, watching instead of participating. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is not failure. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and realizing that fear made too many of your choices. The Buddha once reminded us that the greatest battles are fought within the mind. And maybe your battle is not against the world. Maybe your battle is against the voice that keeps telling you that you cannot. The voice that says you are too late, too broken, too ordinary, too weak, too afraid. But that voice is not the deepest truth about who you are. Beneath the doubt there is wisdom. Beneath the fear there is courage. Beneath the noise there is a quiet part of you that already knows. You have survived difficult days before. You have walked through pain before. You have risen after falling before. There is strength inside you that doubt cannot understand. So do not wait for fear to disappear. Do not wait until every question has an answer. Do not wait until you feel completely certain. Take the next small step, then another, because your life is not changed by the moments you felt fearless. It is changed by the moments you chose courage anyway, and that one question may become the turning point of your entire life. Is this wisdom guiding me or fear controlling me? Because the answer to that question determines whether you remain a prisoner of doubt or finally become the author of your own awakening. The voice in your head carries the echoes of old wounds. Not every thought that enters your mind belongs to this moment. Not every fear is about what is happening right now. Not every painful belief began with you. Many of the thoughts that trouble you today are echoes from yesterday. They are old voices wearing new clothes. They are old fears speaking through new situations. They are memories that never truly left. The child who was constantly criticized, the teenager who was rejected, the adult who was betrayed, the dreamer who gave everything and still failed, the person who loved deeply and was left behind, the person who trusted and got hurt, the person who cried in silence because no one understood what they were carrying. Pain has a strange way of staying with us. It leaves fingerprints on the mind. It teaches us lessons we never meant to learn. Sometimes those lessons protect us, but many times they imprison us. Maybe when you were young, someone compared you to others and made you feel like you would never be enough. Maybe your efforts were ignored while your mistakes were noticed. Maybe you tried your hardest and still heard words like, "Why can't you be more like them? That's not good enough. You always disappoint people. You'll never succeed." At the time, they were only words. But when painful words are repeated often enough, they stop sounding like opinions. They begin to sound like truth. Years later, those voices can still live inside your mind. Now, every time you make a mistake, your mind whispers, "You see? You're not good enough. A teacher once embarrassed you in front of others." Now your mind tells you that you are not intelligent. Someone laughed at your dream. Now your mind says your dreams are unrealistic. Someone you loved walked away without explanation. Now your mind says everyone eventually leaves. Someone betrayed your trust. Now your mind says people cannot be trusted. You failed once. Now your mind says you will always fail. You made one wrong decision. Now your mind says you ruin everything you touch. Do you see what the mind does? Pain takes one moment and turns it into an identity. One rejection becomes "I am unwanted." One failure becomes "I am incapable." One heartbreak becomes "I am unlovable." One disappointment becomes "Nothing ever works out for me." Pain rarely speaks with balance. Pain speaks in extremes. Always, never, everyone, no one. It says you always mess things up. No one truly cares. You will never change. Everyone eventually abandons you. But life is rarely that absolute. And Buddhism gently reminds us of this truth. Thoughts are not facts. Feelings are not permanent. Stories created by fear are not the whole picture. These painful beliefs are temporary impressions, clouds passing through the sky of awareness. But many people spend their entire lives chasing those clouds. They build homes inside storms that were only meant to pass through. They introduce themselves through their wounds. "I am anxious. I am broken. I am difficult to love. I am a failure. I am weak." No, you are not the labels created during your most painful moments. You are not the conclusions fear forced you to make when your heart was hurting. You are not the cruel words spoken by people who did not understand your worth. You are not the rejection of one person. You are not the betrayal of another. You are not the mistakes you made while trying to learn how to live. Those experiences happened to you, but they are not you. There is a difference, a very important difference. A person can carry pain without becoming pain. A person can experience rejection without becoming unworthy. A person can fail without becoming a failure. A person can be abandoned without becoming unlovable. Yet because these wounds often arrive early in life, we mistake them for our identity. We stop questioning them. We stop challenging them. We simply accept them. We say, "This is just who I am." But Buddhism teaches that the self is not fixed. You are constantly changing, growing, learning, healing. The person you were 10 years ago is not the person you are today. The frightened child inside you deserves compassion, but that child should not be forced to make every decision for your adult life. The wounded version of you deserves love, but those wounds should not be allowed to write the rest of your story. Because beneath all the fear, beneath all the disappointment, beneath all the voices telling you who you are, there is something untouched, a deeper awareness, a quiet presence, a part of you that existed before people projected their pain onto you, before criticism shaped your confidence, before rejection shaped your self-worth, before heartbreak shaped your view of love. This deeper part of you has always been there, watching, breathing, waiting patiently for you to remember. Remember that you were never born believing you were not enough. No child enters this world believing they are unworthy of love. Those beliefs were learned, and what is learned can also be unlearned. Healing does not happen overnight. You may still hear those old voices from time to time. The voice that says you are too much. The voice that says you are not enough. The voice that says you should stop trying. The voice that says nothing will ever change. But healing begins the moment you stop treating those voices as truth. Instead of saying, "This is who I am," you begin saying, "This is what happened to me." Instead of saying, "I am broken," you say, "I have been hurt." Instead of saying, "I will always be this way," you say, "I am still healing." And those small changes in language slowly change your entire relationship with yourself. Freedom does not begin when every painful thought disappears. Freedom begins when you recognize where those thoughts came from. When you understand that some of the loudest voices in your head are simply old wounds asking to be seen with compassion instead of fear. You are not the worst thing someone made you believe about yourself. You are not the voice of rejection living inside your mind. You are not the fear created by yesterday's pain. You are something much deeper, something wiser, something stronger, something untouched by the opinions of others. And perhaps the first true step toward awakening is this: to realize that some thoughts are inherited pain, not truth. And the moment you stop building your identity around your wounds, you create space for healing. You create space for peace. You create space to finally meet the person you have always been beneath the pain. The person fear tried to hide from you. The person doubt could never destroy. The person waiting quietly inside you to come home at last. Overthinking turns small fears into giant monsters. Most suffering does not begin with a tragedy. It begins with a thought. A small thought. A simple question. A tiny seed of uncertainty that quietly enters the mind. What if something goes wrong? That is all. Just one thought, one question, one moment of doubt. But instead of letting it pass, the mind grabs hold of it. It pulls it closer. It examines it from every angle. It feeds it with attention. And before long, that tiny seed begins to grow. What if people judge me? What if I embarrass myself? What if I make the wrong decision? What if they stop loving me? What if I lose everything? What if I never recover from this? What if my whole future falls apart? The mind keeps asking questions, not because it wants peace, but because it believes that if it thinks hard enough, it can protect you from pain. This is one of the greatest illusions of overthinking. It convinces you that worrying is useful. It tells you that fear is preparation. It makes you believe that if you imagine every possible disaster, you will somehow be safer. But think about it. How many times have you spent hours worrying about something that never happened? How many sleepless nights have you sacrificed to problems that existed only inside your imagination? How many beautiful moments have you missed because your mind was busy creating frightening stories about tomorrow? Overthinking promises certainty, but it delivers exhaustion. It steals your energy without solving your problems. It takes away today's peace to prepare for a future that may never arrive. A single comment from someone becomes proof that everyone secretly dislikes you. One unanswered message becomes evidence that you are being abandoned. One mistake becomes confirmation that you are a failure. One setback becomes the end of the story. Do you see what the mind is doing? It takes a small shadow and turns it into a monster. It takes uncertainty and turns it into disaster. It takes possibility and treats it like certainty. Soon, your body begins believing the stories your mind has created. Your chest becomes tight. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your shoulders carry invisible tension. Your stomach twists into knots. You feel tired even though you have done nothing physically demanding, because fighting imaginary battles is still exhausting. Your body cannot always tell the difference between a real threat and a deeply imagined one. The mind says, "Danger," and the body responds, "Prepare for survival," even when you are sitting safely in your own room. This is why so many people feel exhausted without understanding why. They are fighting wars that have never happened. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that much of human suffering comes not from life itself, but from the stories we attach to life. Pain may visit everyone, but the mind often multiplies pain through resistance, fear, and endless mental repetition. A difficult conversation becomes 10 imaginary arguments. A challenge becomes a catastrophe. An uncertain future becomes a hopeless future. The event itself may be small, but the mind keeps replaying it again and again and again, like watching the same frightening movie hundreds of times until you forget that it is only a movie. Perhaps you know this feeling. Maybe someone looked serious while speaking to you. Immediately your mind said, "They're upset with me." Then another thought appeared. "What did I do wrong?" Then another, "They probably don't want me around." Then another, "People always leave." Within minutes, you moved from a facial expression to the fear of abandonment. Nothing was confirmed. Nothing was certain. Yet your heart suffered as though it were already true. This is how overthinking steals joy from ordinary moments. You sit with family, but your mind is somewhere else. You walk beneath a beautiful sunset, but you cannot see it because you are busy worrying about next week. Someone tells you they love you, but your mind whispers, "They'll leave eventually." Life keeps happening, but you are not fully there to receive it, because your thoughts have carried you away from the present moment. Buddhism gently invites us back to this breath, back to this moment, back to what is actually here, not the future your fear invented, not the conversations your mind rehearsed, not the disasters your imagination created. Just this moment. Ask yourself, right now, in this exact second, what is truly happening? Can you feel your feet touching the ground? Can you hear the sounds as around you? Can you notice the air entering and leaving your body? Can you see the light in the room? Can you recognize that in this moment you are okay? Most of the time, the answer is yes. The storm exists in the mind, not in reality. That does not mean your fears are foolish. It means they do not deserve complete control over your life. Fear is trying to protect you, but fear is not always wise, and overthinking is not the same as understanding. Thinking deeply can bring clarity. Overthinking creates confusion. Thinking deeply leads to solutions. Overthinking leads to paralysis. Thinking deeply allows you to respond. Overthinking keeps you trapped in endless circles. One brings wisdom, the other steals peace. There is another truth that many people forget. You have survived uncertainty before. There were days when you had no idea how things would work out. Yet somehow they did. There were moments when you believed your world was ending. Yet you found the strength to continue. There were problems you thought you could never handle. Yet here you are, breathing, growing, learning, still moving forward. You have already faced many tomorrows that once terrified you, and you survived them. So perhaps you do not need to solve every future problem tonight. Perhaps you do not need to carry tomorrow's pain while living through today's blessings. Perhaps peace is not found by controlling every possible outcome. Perhaps peace is found by trusting yourself enough to meet life as it comes. The truth is, life has never asked you to predict everything. Life has only asked you to be present enough to live it. So the next time your mind begins building monsters out of shadows, pause. Take a slow breath. Notice the stories you are telling yourself. Notice how quickly the mind jumps from possibility to certainty. Notice how fear disguises itself as preparation, and then gently bring yourself back to your breath, back to your body, back to this moment. Because this moment is real. This moment is where your life is happening. Not in the disasters your mind imagined, not in the future your fear created. Right here, right now. The greatest tragedy is not that bad things sometimes happen. The greatest tragedy is spending your entire life suffering over things that never do. Do not hand your peace over to imaginary futures. Do not allow overthinking to steal the beauty that exists in front of you. The mind will always create stories. That is its nature. But you do not have to believe every story it tells. You are not the frightened voice predicting disaster. You are the awareness listening to it. And awareness always has a choice. To keep feeding the fear, or to gently smile and say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose to live in reality, not imagination." Because most of the monsters in your mind grow stronger for one reason. You keep feeding them your attention. And the moment you stop feeding them, you finally discover how small they really were. A tired heart cannot always tell you the truth. There are some days when your mind becomes a very unreliable narrator. Days when everything feels heavier than it really is. Days when even the smallest problem feels impossible to solve. Days when one unanswered message makes you feel forgotten. One mistake makes you feel worthless. One disappointment makes you believe that nothing good will ever happen again. And on those days, it is important to remember something most people never realize. A tired heart cannot always tell you the truth. Not because you are weak, not because you are broken, but because exhaustion changes the way you see the world. Think about the last time you were deeply tired, not just physically tired, emotionally tired, the kind of tiredness that sleep alone cannot fix, the tiredness that comes from carrying too much for too long, the tiredness that comes from pretending to be okay when you are falling apart inside, the tiredness that comes from being strong for everyone else while quietly neglecting yourself, the tiredness that comes from fighting battles nobody knows about. When your heart reaches that state, your mind begins to lose its clarity. Suddenly, hope becomes harder to find. The future looks darker. The world feels colder. Simple tasks feel overwhelming. The voice in your head becomes harsher. It says, "You can't do this anymore. You're falling behind. Nothing is getting better. Nobody understands you. You're all alone. What's the point of trying? You'll never get through this." And because these thoughts feel intense, you assume they must be true. But intensity is not the same as truth. Just because a thought feels powerful does not mean it is accurate. A tired mind often mistakes temporary emotions for permanent realities. It says, "You feel lonely today, so you must always be alone. You feel lost today, so your whole life must be directionless. You feel exhausted today, so you must not be strong enough." But feelings change. Energy changes. Seasons change. And thoughts born from exhaustion should not be trusted with permanent decisions. Buddhism teaches us that all experiences are impermanent. Everything rises, everything falls. Pleasure changes, pain changes, joy changes, sorrow changes. Even the darkest night eventually gives way to morning. Yet when we are emotionally drained, we forget this truth. We begin to believe that the way we feel right now is the way we will feel forever. But forever is a story fear tells tired people. A heart that has been carrying too much cannot always see clearly. Imagine looking through a dusty window. The world outside has not changed, but your ability to see it has. You may think life itself has become hopeless, when in reality your spirit simply needs care. Perhaps what you need is not to give up. Perhaps what you need is rest. Perhaps what you need is to stop demanding perfection from yourself. Perhaps what you need is one evening without guilt, one deep breath, one honest conversation, One walk beneath the open sky, one good night's sleep, one moment of silence, one act of kindness toward your own heart. Many people believe that being hard on themselves will make them stronger, so they criticize themselves endlessly. They become their own harshest judge. You should be doing more. You should have healed by now. You shouldn't still feel this way. Why can't you just get over it? You are disappointing everyone. But the human heart does not bloom through punishment. A flower does not grow because someone yells at it. A child does not thrive because they are constantly shamed. And your soul does not heal through cruelty. Healing requires patience. Healing requires understanding. Healing requires gentleness. The Buddha spoke often about compassion. Yet many people offer compassion to everyone except themselves. They forgive others. They comfort others. They encourage others. But when it comes to their own pain, they become ruthless. They treat themselves in ways they would never treat another human being. If your closest friend came to you crying, would you call them useless? Would you tell them they are a burden? Would you shame them for struggling? Would you tell them they should already have everything figured out? Of course not. You would sit beside them. You would listen. You would remind them that difficult seasons do not last forever. You would tell them that they are doing the best they can. You would offer patience instead of judgment. So why deny yourself the same kindness? Why do you believe you must earn compassion through achievement? You are worthy of gentleness simply because you are human, simply because you hurt, simply because you are trying. Some of the strongest people you know are secretly exhausted. The friend who always smiles, the parent who never complains, the person everyone depends on, the one who keeps saying, "I'm fine." Strength and exhaustion often exist together. You can be grateful and still be tired. You can be strong and still need rest. You can love your life and still struggle. You can have faith and still feel overwhelmed. Being human means carrying contradictions. There is no shame in that. The problem begins when you allow your exhaustion to define your identity. When one difficult chapter becomes your entire story. When one painful season convinces you that nothing beautiful remains ahead. But your current emotional weather is not your permanent climate. A storm passing through the sky does not become the sky itself. Likewise, this difficult season does not become who you are. There is still wisdom beneath your confusion. There is still hope beneath your sadness. There is still strength beneath your weariness. There is still light beneath your fear. And perhaps the most courageous thing you can do is stop fighting yourself long enough to listen. Not to the voice of panic, not to the voice of shame, but to the quieter voice beneath it all. The voice that whispers, "You've survived hard days before. You don't have to carry everything alone. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to ask for help. You don't have to prove your worth. You are still enough, even on your hardest days. You are still worthy of love, even when you feel tired." Sometimes healing does not begin with changing your entire life. Sometimes healing begins by simply putting down what you were never meant to carry, alone. It begins by drinking water when you've forgotten to care for yourself. It begins by stepping outside and feeling the sunlight on your face. It begins by crying instead of pretending you're okay. It begins by resting without apologizing for it. It begins by speaking to yourself with the same tenderness you offer others. So the next time your mind tells you that everything is hopeless, pause. But before believing it, ask yourself, am I seeing clearly or am I simply exhausted? Because those two things are not the same. Do not make permanent decisions based on temporary exhaustion. Do not abandon yourself because today feels heavy. Do not confuse fatigue with failure. Rest if you must. Slow down if you need to. Be gentle with your healing. But please do not give up on yourself, because some of the most beautiful chapters of your life will begin after the seasons that almost convinced you they never could. A tired heart may forget the truth for a while, but the truth remains. You are not weak, you are not broken, you are not falling behind. You are a human being carrying invisible battles while still choosing to move forward. And that quiet decision to keep going, even when your soul feels tired, may be one of the bravest things you ever do. So breathe, rest, be kind to yourself. And remember this: the voice in your head during your darkest moments is not always telling the truth. Sometimes it is simply asking for compassion. Doubt makes you forget the warrior you have already become. One of the cruelest things doubt does is this: it erases your memory. Not your actual memories, but your memory of who you truly are. It reminds you of every mistake you have ever made, yet conveniently forgets every mountain you have already climbed. It replays your failures, but skips over your victories. It magnifies the moments when you fell down, while ignoring every single time you found the strength to stand back up again. Doubt has a very selective memory. It remembers the heartbreak, but forgets the healing. It remembers the rejection, but forgets the courage it took to open your heart again. It remembers the disappointment, but forgets how many times you adapted and moved forward. It remembers the fear, but forgets the bravery that carried you through it. And slowly, if you listen to doubt long enough, you begin to see yourself through its eyes. You stop seeing your strength. You stop recognizing your resilience. You stop honoring your journey. You begin to believe that you are weak, fragile, lost, unprepared. You look at the challenges ahead of you and think, I can't handle this. I've never been strong enough. I always fall apart. I don't have what it takes. But is that really true? Pause for a moment, take a breath, and look back at your life honestly. There was a version of you who thought they would never survive what they were going through. A version of you who cried behind closed doors because the pain felt unbearable. A version of you who stayed awake at night, wondering how they would make it through tomorrow. A version of you who felt completely broken. And yet, you are still here. You survived the days you thought would destroy you. You made it through the heartbreak you believed would last forever. You carried burdens that nobody knew about. You smiled while your heart was hurting. You kept going when giving up would have been easier. You rebuilt yourself after disappointment. You found reasons to continue even when life gave you every excuse to stop. Think about that. At one point in your life, the person you are today was the future version of yourself you desperately hoped would exist. The stronger version, the wiser version, the version who somehow made it through. You became that person, not because life was easy, but because something inside you refused to quit. Maybe you didn't move gracefully, maybe you stumbled. Maybe there were moments when you crawled instead of walked. Maybe there were days when simply getting out of bed felt like an act of courage. But you kept moving, and that matters. The Buddha taught that suffering is part of being human. No one escapes pain, no one escapes loss, no one escapes uncertainty. But suffering also reveals something important. It reveals what lives inside us. Most people never discover how strong they truly are until life asks them to be strong. You never knew you could survive heartbreak until your heart broke. You never knew you could adapt until life changed without your permission. You never knew you could carry grief until grief sat beside you. You never knew you could rise again until you had no choice but to stand. Strength is rarely built in comfort. It is built in ordinary moments of persistence. The moment you got up even though you didn't want to. The moment you tried again after failing. The moment you chose kindness despite being hurt. The moment you decided not to let bitterness consume your heart. The moment you whispered, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I'll take one more step. That is strength. Real strength does not always look powerful. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like resting instead of giving up. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. Sometimes it looks like crying and still continuing. Sometimes it looks like choosing hope when despair feels easier. The strongest people are not those who never struggle. The strongest people are those who struggle and still choose to keep living with an open heart. Yet doubt wants you to forget all of this. It points to your current fear and says, "This challenge is different. You won't survive this one. You've reached your limit." But haven't you heard that voice before? Didn't it whisper the same thing during your last storm? Didn't it tell you that you wouldn't recover? Didn't it insist that the pain would never end? Didn't it convince you that there was no forward? And wasn't it wrong? Again, and again, and again. Doubt has underestimated you your entire life. It underestimated your ability to heal. It underestimated your capacity to adapt. It underestimated your courage. It underestimated your heart. And maybe the greatest mistake you can make is continuing to underestimate yourself too. You are not the frightened person doubt describes. You are not the helpless version your fear tries to create. You are not defined by your hardest moments. You are the person who survived them, the person who learned from them, the person who grew because of them. The scars you carry are not evidence that you are damaged beyond repair. They are evidence that you healed. A scar is not proof of weakness. A scar is proof that pain visited you, and you lived to tell the story. The truth is, you have done difficult things before. You have walked through uncertainty before. You have entered seasons without knowing how they would end. And somehow, step by step, breath by breath, you found your way through. You will do it again. Not because you have all the answers, but because you have become someone who can face the unknown. The warrior within you was not born in peaceful moments. It was forged in the fire of everything you thought would break you. Every disappointment shaped your wisdom. Every tear deepened your compassion. Every setback strengthened your endurance. Every ending taught you how to begin again. So when doubt whispers, "You can't do this," answer gently, "I've heard you before." When fear says, "You're not strong enough," remember all the storms you have already survived. When uncertainty says, "You'll never make it," look at your own life as evidence, because your story tells a different truth. Your story says, you've been here before, you've fallen before, you've been afraid before, and you kept going. You don't need to become someone new to face what lies ahead. You only need to remember who you already are. Remember the fighter who refused to surrender. Remember the dreamer who kept believing. Remember the survivor who chose to heal instead of harden. Remember the soul that carried unbearable weight and still found reasons to love, laugh, and hope again. That person is still here, beneath the fear, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the doubt, waiting for you to recognize them once more. So before you call yourself weak, look back. Before you say, "I can't handle this," look back. Before you believe the voice telling you that you are not enough, look back. You have already overcome things that the old version of you thought were impossible. You have already proven your strength more times than you realize. Doubt may forget the warrior you have become, but you don't have to, because deep within you lives a quiet truth that fear can never erase. You are far stronger than the voice in your head wants you to believe. And perhaps the greatest act of awakening is not discovering new strength. It is remembering the strength that has been carrying you all along. Freedom begins the moment you stop obeying every thought. One of the most life-changing truths you will ever discover is this: you do not have to believe everything you think. Read that again. You do not have to believe everything you think, because the human mind is an incredible tool. But it is not a perfect guide. It remembers, it imagines, it predicts, it compares, it protects. It creates stories. And sometimes it gets things terribly wrong. Yet most people spend their entire lives treating every thought as a command. A thought appears. They obey it. A fear enters. They surrender to it. A doubt whispers. They change the direction of their entire life because of it. The mind says, don't try, so they never begin. The mind says, they'll reject you, so they never express how they feel. The mind, you're not smart enough, so they stop learning. The mind says, you're too old, so they abandon their dreams. The mind says, you'll fail again, so they never give themselves another chance. Little by little, they stop living from wisdom. They begin living from fear, and eventually, they don't even realize they are trapped, because the prison has become familiar. Buddhism teaches something revolutionary. A thought is just a thought. It is not an order. It is not destiny. It is not your identity. It is simply an event happening inside the mind. Nothing more. Think about the sky. Clouds appear every day. Some are light and beautiful. Others are dark and heavy. Some bring rain. Some disappear within minutes. But no matter what kind of cloud passes through the sky itself remains unchanged. Your awareness is like that sky. Thoughts are merely clouds. The problem begins when you forget you are the sky and start believing you are every cloud that passes by. A thought says, I'm not enough, and you answer, this must be who I am. A thought says, I'm going to fail, and you respond, I shouldn't even try. A thought says, no one loves me, and you withdraw from the people who care about you. A thought says, something bad is going to happen, and you spend the entire day suffering over an event that never arrives. You see, the suffering often isn't created by the thought itself. It is created by the unquestioned belief in the thought. Imagine someone knocking on your front door. Would you invite every stranger into your home? Would you hand them the keys to your house without asking who they are? Of course not. Then why do we do this with our minds? Why do we welcome every fearful thought without question? Why do we allow every negative voice to sit at the center of our lives? Why do we trust every visitor simply because it arrived inside our own head? Not every thought deserves a seat at your table. Some thoughts deserve compassion, some deserve curiosity, and some deserve nothing more than a quiet goodbye. Mindfulness teaches us to become observers instead of automatic followers. A thought appears. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You notice it. You breathe. You create a small space between yourself and what your mind is saying. That space changes everything, because in that space, freedom lives. Without awareness, the process happens automatically. Thought, reaction, suffering. Thought, reaction, suffering, again and again. But awareness interrupts the cycle. The thought says you're going to embarrass yourself. You pause. Interesting. Fear is visiting me today. The thought says, you'll never succeed. You notice. That sounds like an old wound speaking. The thought says, nobody cares about you. You breathe. I don't have to accept that as truth. For the first time, you stop obeying. And perhaps this is what true freedom actually looks like. Not controlling every thought, but refusing to become a servant to them. Many people believe that spiritual growth means eliminating negative thoughts forever, but that is not realistic. Even wise people experience fear. Even monks experience doubt. Even those who have spent years practicing mindfulness still encounter anxiety, sadness, anger, and uncertainty. The difference is not that their minds became silent. The difference is that they stopped worshipping every voice that spoke within them. They learned to listen without surrendering. They learned to feel without drowning. They learned to observe without identifying. Fear still knocked on the door, but fear was no longer allowed to run the household. The Buddha once compared the untamed mind to a wild elephant. A wild elephant destroys everything in its path. It moves without awareness, without direction, without discipline. But a trained elephant becomes powerful, calm, and purposeful. The mind is the same. An untamed mind drags you through every fear, every craving, every insecurity, every story. But a mindful mind allows you to choose your response. You become less reactive, less controlled, less afraid of your own inner world. This does not happen overnight. Some days you will still believe the fearful thoughts. Some days you will still overthink. Some days you will still lose yourself in old patterns. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. The practice is not perfection. The practice is returning again and again and again. Every time you notice that you've become lost in thought and gently come back to the present, you are strengthening awareness. Every time you choose not to obey fear, you are reclaiming your freedom. Every time you refuse to define yourself by a passing emotion, you are remembering who you truly are. Because you are not the voice saying you're not enough. You are the awareness hearing that voice. You are not the fear predicting disaster. You are the presence witnessing it. You are not the anger passing through. You are the stillness that notices it. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. This understanding changes the way you move through life. You stop asking your thoughts for permission before chasing your dreams. You stop waiting for complete confidence before taking action. You stop believing that fear means stop. Instead, you begin asking deeper questions. Is this thought helping me grow? Is this thought rooted in love or fear? Would I say this to someone I deeply care about? Do I want this thought to shape my future? And slowly, your relationship with your mind begins to transform. You stop treating thoughts as facts. You stop treating emotions as permanent truths. You stop handing your power over to every passing fear. You begin choosing what deserves your attention, what deserves your energy, what deserves your belief. That choice is sacred, because your life is shaped by what you repeatedly believe. If you believe every fearful thought, fear becomes your master. If you observe those thoughts with awareness, wisdom becomes your guide. Freedom is not found somewhere far away. Freedom begins in this moment. The moment you realize that just because your mind says something does not mean you must obey. Just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves your trust. Just because fear speaks does not mean fear should decide the direction of your life. There will always be voices inside your head. Some will encourage you, some will protect you, some will try to keep you small. Your task is not to silence them all. Your task is to choose which voice you follow. And perhaps the most beautiful awakening of all is this. The voice of fear may be loud, the voice of doubt may be persistent, but beneath them both there is another voice, quiet, steady, compassionate, wise, the voice of awareness, the voice that says, you've survived before, you can take one more step, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to believe every story your mind tells you. You are stronger than this fear. You are free to choose again. Listen carefully. That voice has been with you all along. And the moment you choose to follow it instead of fear, you stop being a prisoner of your thoughts and begin becoming the peaceful, awakened person you were always meant to be. Peace arrives when you stop fighting the storms of the mind. Most people spend their entire lives fighting themselves. They fight their thoughts. They fight their emotions. They fight their fears. They fight their sadness. They fight their memories. And without realizing it, they turn their own minds into battlefields. Every morning begins with a war. A fearful thought appears. No, I shouldn't be thinking this. An anxious feeling rises. Why am I like this? A painful memory returns. I need to make this go away. A wave of sadness visits. I shouldn't feel this way. And so the struggle begins. Thought against thought, emotion against emotion, judgment against experience. A war that no one else can see. A war that slowly steals joy from ordinary moments. Perhaps you know what this feels like. You tell yourself not to worry, but the worrying continues. You tell yourself not to be anxious, but anxiety grows stronger. You try to force yourself to stop thinking, yet your mind becomes even louder. You promise yourself that tomorrow you will finally gain control. But tomorrow arrives, and the same battle begins again. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings about inner peace. Most people believe peace comes from winning the war inside their heads. They think peace means never feeling fear again, never feeling anger, never feeling sadness, never having negative thoughts, never doubting themselves. But Buddhism offers a different understanding. Peace is not the absence of storms. Peace is learning how to sit calmly while storms pass through. Because the truth is this: the more you fight certain thoughts, the stronger they often become. Think about it. Have you ever tried not to think about something? The moment you tell yourself, "Don't think about it," your mind immediately brings it back, again and again and again. The more desperately you push it away, the more tightly it clings to you. It's like trying to force a beach ball underwater. For a few seconds, you can hold it down, but eventually it bursts back to the surface with even greater force. The mind works in much the same way. The thoughts you fear, the emotions you resist, the memories you suppress, they often return louder than before, not because they want to punish you, but because they are asking to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be understood. The Buddha taught that resistance often creates additional suffering. Pain is part of life, but fighting against pain can create even more pain. Fear visits, then we fear the fear. Sadness appears, then we become ashamed of being sad. Anxiety arrives, then we criticize ourselves for feeling anxious. Now we are carrying not only the original emotion, but the judgment we placed upon it. And that second layer of suffering is often heavier than the first. Imagine standing in the middle of a rainstorm. You cannot stop the rain from falling. You cannot command the clouds to disappear. You cannot force the sky to become clear. But you can stop screaming at the rain. You can stop demanding that reality be different. You can accept what is happening without adding unnecessary struggle. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean enjoying pain. It simply means saying, "This is what I am experiencing right now," without panic, without shame, without war. Perhaps sadness is here. Let it sit beside you. Perhaps fear has arrived. Allow yourself to notice it. Perhaps uncertainty has entered your heart. Acknowledge its presence. You do not have to invite these visitors to stay forever, but you also do not have to attack them. There is a beautiful image often used in mindfulness practice. Imagine yourself sitting beside a river. Leaves float gently across the water. Some leaves are beautiful, some are broken, some are large, some are small. You notice them, but you do not jump into the river to chase them. You do not grab every leaf. You do not argue with them. You simply watch them pass. Thoughts are like those leaves. Some thoughts bring gratitude. Others bring fear. Some bring joy. Others bring grief. Some whisper encouragement. Others carry old wounds. But none of them require you to abandon your seat beside the river. The problem begins when you dive into the water after every passing thought. One fearful thought appears. You chase it. One painful memory surfaces. You drown in it. One critical voice speaks. You believe it completely. Soon, you forget that you were ever the observer. You become lost in the current. But mindfulness gently invites you back to the shore. Back to awareness. Back to stillness. Back to yourself. This does not happen perfectly. Some days you will still get swept away. Some days, fear will pull you into its stories. Some days, anxiety will feel stronger than your wisdom. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. The practice is not about never getting lost. The practice is learning how to return, again and again, without judgment, without self-hatred, without giving up. Every time you notice that you have become trapped inside your thoughts and gently bring yourself back to the present moment, you are strengthening peace. You are training your mind. You are becoming less reactive, less controlled, less afraid of your own inner experience. Slowly, something beautiful begins to happen. Fear still visits, but it no longer rules you. Sadness still arrives, but it no longer convinces you that life is hopeless. Doubt still whispers, but it no longer decides who you become. The storm still exists, but you stop becoming the storm. And perhaps this is one of the deepest truths Buddhism offers. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your fears. You are the awareness that notices them all. Think about the sky. Storms pass through it. Thunder shakes it. Rain pours from it. Dark clouds cover it. Yet the sky itself remains untouched. It never becomes the storm. It simply holds space for it. You are like that sky. Your awareness is wider than your fear, deeper than your sadness, stronger than your anxiety, larger than your doubt. No storm, no matter how powerful, can stay forever. Even the longest night eventually surrenders to the morning. Even the harshest winter eventually gives way to spring. Even the strongest storm eventually runs out of rain. Your emotions are no different. What you feel today will not last forever. This moment is not your final destination. This pain is not your identity. This fear is not your future. So the next time your mind becomes loud, the next time anxiety tells you to panic, the next time sadness asks you to believe that nothing will ever change, pause. Take a slow breath. Place your attention on the present moment. And remind yourself, I do not have to fight this. I do not have to fear my own mind. I do not have to believe every thought. I can allow this moment to exist without becoming it. Because peace does not arrive when you finally control every thought. Peace arrives when you stop demanding that your mind be perfect before you allow yourself to live. Peace arrives when you stop treating yourself like an enemy. Peace arrives when you stop declaring war on your own humanity. And perhaps the greatest freedom of all is realizing this. You do not need to conquer the storm. You only need to remember that you are the sky. The storm may roar, the wind may howl, the rain may fall, but beneath it all, there is a quiet place within you that has never been broken. A stillness untouched by fear, a wisdom untouched by doubt, a peace untouched by chaos, again and again, because the storms of the mind will come and go. But the awareness beneath them, the awareness that simply watches with compassion and patience, has been waiting for you all along. And the moment you stop fighting the storm, you finally discover the peace that was hidden underneath it. Awakening begins. When awareness becomes greater than fear, there comes a moment in every person's life when they grow tired. Tired of overthinking, tired of doubting themselves, tired of being controlled by fear, tired of fighting battles inside their own minds. Tired of waiting for a day when they finally feel confident enough, healed enough, fearless enough to begin living. And slowly, a quiet question begins to rise within them. What if I don't have to wait anymore? What if fear doesn't have to disappear before I move forward? What if peace is available to me even now? This question marks the beginning of awakening, because awakening is not becoming a different person. It is remembering who you were before fear convinced you to forget. Many people misunderstand awakening. They imagine it as a magical moment, a sudden burst of enlightenment where all doubts disappear forever. They imagine a life where fear never returns, where sadness never visits, where uncertainty no longer exists. But Buddhism teaches something much gentler and much more human. Awakening does not mean the mind becomes silent forever. The mind will continue to think. It will question. It will compare. It will imagine. It will worry. That is simply what minds do. The difference is this. You stop believing that every fearful voice deserves your obedience. You stop kneeling before every anxious thought. You stop asking fear for permission before you live your life. For years, many people wait for certainty. They tell themselves, I'll start when I feel confident. I'll speak up when I stop being afraid. I'll chase my dream when I know it will work. I'll trust again when I know I won't get hurt. I'll love myself when I finally become enough. But that day rarely comes, because fear always finds another reason to delay your life. If you obey fear long enough, you begin living in preparation instead of participation. You spend your entire life getting ready to live without ever truly living. Awakening changes this. It whispers, you can be afraid and still take the next step. You can be uncertain and still move forward. You can carry unanswered questions and still choose hope. You can tremble and still be brave. Because courage was never the absence of fear. Courage is choosing what matters most, even while fear sits beside you. Awareness gives you this choice. Before awareness, fear becomes your master. Fear says, stay where it's safe, and you obey. Fear says, don't trust anyone, and you build walls around your heart. Fear says, you're not enough, and you shrink yourself to fit the expectations of others. Fear says, you'll fail, and you abandon your dreams before they have a chance to grow. But awareness interrupts the pattern. Fear still speaks, yet something deeper within you responds. I hear you, but you are not the only voice inside me. This deeper voice does not scream. It does not demand attention. It speaks softly, patiently, steadily. It says, you've survived difficult seasons before. You don't need all the answers today. You are capable of learning. You are worthy of love. You can begin again. You can trust yourself. You can take one more step. This is the voice of awareness, the voice of wisdom, the voice beneath the noise, the voice many people spend their entire lives searching for, not realizing it has always been inside them. Think about the ocean. The surface is constantly changing. Waves rise and fall. Winds shift direction. Storms. Some days the ocean is calm. Other days it is wild. But beneath the surface, deep below the crashing waves, there is stillness, a silence untouched by the storm above. Your awareness is like that. Fear exists on the surface. Anxiety exists on the surface. Doubt exists on the surface. But beneath them is something vast and steady. A part of you untouched by praise and criticism, untouched by success and failure, untouched by the opinions of others, untouched by yesterday's pain. This deeper self has watched every chapter of your life unfold. It watched when you were a child trying to understand the world. It stayed with you through heartbreak. It remained present during loss. It witnessed your tears. It witnessed your laughter. It remained through every version of you, the fearful version, the confused version, the hopeful version, the broken version, the healing version, the version still learning how to love themselves. Through it all, awareness never left. You may have forgotten it, but it never forgot you. Perhaps this is why awakening often feels less like discovering something new and more like coming home. Coming home to yourself. Coming home to the peace you thought you had lost. Coming home to the wisdom that fear could never destroy. And this changes how you move through life. You stop chasing perfection. You stop needing certainty before action. You stop demanding that healing happen according to your timeline. You stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. You stop measuring your worth through achievements. You begin trusting the unfolding of your own path. Some days you will still doubt yourself, and that's okay. Some days fear will still visit, and that's okay. Some mornings you will wake up feeling strong. Other mornings you will feel fragile. And that's okay too. Awakening is not about becoming superhuman. It is about becoming deeply human. It is about meeting every part of yourself with awareness instead of judgment. The frightened parts, the angry parts, the grieving parts, the hopeful parts, the exhausted parts, the parts still carrying old wounds. Instead of rejecting them, you hold them gently. You listen without surrendering. You acknowledge without identifying. You say, you belong here, but you do not define me, because you are larger than your fear, larger than your thoughts, larger than your emotions, larger than your doubt. The truth is, life will continue to surprise you. There will be losses you never expected, changes you never planned for, goodbyes you never wanted, moments that shake your confidence, moments that break your heart. But there will also be unexpected joys, unexpected healing, unexpected friendships, unexpected beauty, unexpected strength. There will be mornings when sunlight touches your face and reminds you that life is still worth showing up. For there will be laughter after tears, peace after chaos, love after loss, hope after despair. If fear controls your life, you miss these moments. But awareness allows you to remain open. Open to wonder, open to healing, open to possibility, open to life itself. So perhaps awakening is not reaching a destination. Perhaps awakening is learning how to walk through life with open eyes, to notice the beauty hidden in ordinary moments, to trust yourself enough to begin again, to stop abandoning yourself every time fear appears, to choose presence over panic, compassion over criticism, wisdom over worry, again and again. And maybe the greatest freedom of all is realizing this. Fear may walk beside you, but it does not have to lead you. Doubt may knock at your door, but you do not have to invite it to stay. The voice in your head may speak, but it does not get the final word. The final word belongs to awareness. The final word belongs to love. The final word belongs to courage. The final word belongs to the quiet truth within you that has survived every storm you thought would destroy you. So the next time fear tells you to shrink, choose expansion. The next time doubt tells you to stop, take one small step forward. The next time your mind tells you that you are not enough, place your hand over your heart and remember, you have never been asked to be fearless. You have only been asked to be present, to be kind, to be awake enough to recognize that beneath all the noise of the mind, there is already a peaceful, wise, and compassionate presence living inside you. It has always been there, waiting patiently, watching lovingly, calling you home. And perhaps awakening is nothing more than finally answering that call, finally trusting that the deepest truth about who you are is not fear, but awareness, not doubt, but wisdom, not weakness, but quiet strength, not the restless voice in your head, but the peaceful presence beneath it. And the moment awareness becomes greater than fear, you stop merely surviving your life, you begin to truly live it. Welcome home. Welcome back to yourself. Maybe no one ever taught you that you don't have to believe every thought your mind creates. Maybe you spent years fighting invisible battles, questioning your worth, doubting your strength, and carrying fears that were never truly yours. Maybe you thought peace belonged only to people whose minds were always calm. But now you know the truth. The voice in your head is not always right. Fear can speak without telling the truth. Doubt can visit without becoming your identity. Pain can leave scars without defining who you are. And even on the days when your mind feels loud, restless, and heavy, there is still a part of you that remains untouched. A quiet place within you. A place that has survived every heartbreak, every disappointment, every sleepless night, every moment you thought you wouldn't make it through. A place that kept breathing when you wanted to give up. A place that kept hoping when life became uncertain. A place that never stopped believing in your ability to heal. That place is still within you. You do not have to become someone else to find peace. You do not have to earn your worth. You do not have to wait until you are fearless before you start living. You only have to remember. Remember that you are stronger than your doubt, wiser than your fear, deeper than your thoughts, and far more powerful than the stories your wounded mind has been repeating for years. So tonight, before close your eyes, forgive yourself for all the times you believed you were not enough. Forgive yourself for the dreams you abandoned because fear convinced you to stay small. Forgive yourself for the moments you lost your way. You were trying to survive with the awareness you had at the time. And despite everything, you are still here, still learning, still healing, still growing, still becoming. That is not weakness. That is courage. That is resilience. That is the quiet miracle of being human. One day, you will look back at this version of yourself and realize that the battle was never about silencing the mind. It was about learning not to surrender your life to its every whisper. It was about returning to yourself. again and again, until peace no longer felt like something outside of you, but something you carried within you all along. And if no one has told you this lately, let these words stay with you. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are not too late, you are simply unfolding in your own time. Trust the journey, trust your healing, trust the wisdom growing quietly inside your soul, because the person you are becoming is already fighting for you. And one day, you will thank yourself for not giving up. If this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the Inner Buddha Code and walk this path with us. This is more than a channel. It is a place who are tired of being controlled by fear, a place for those learning to heal from the inside out, a place for those choosing awareness over anxiety, wisdom over worry, and peace over the endless noise of the mind. If these words touched your heart, leave a comment below and write, "I choose awareness over fear." Let that sentence become a promise to yourself. And if someone you love is quietly fighting the same battle, share this video with them. You never know whose darkness might need a small light today. Until we meet again, be gentle with your mind. Be patient with your healing. Keep returning to the present moment. And remember, the voice in your head may speak loudly, but it does not decide who you become. You do. This is the Inner Buddha Code, and your journey back to yourself has only just begun.